All right, well, this is one of my favorite episodes that we do each year. It's our workplace predictions. And to help me review these, I've invited Career Contessa coach Marnie Lemonik to the show. Hi, Marnie, welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Fun fact is that Marnie is also one of our coaches participating in Career Camp. So if you enroll, you could be matched with her. And of course, I've included lots of information about Career Camp in the show notes since enrollment does end on Monday, December 11th, 2023. So if you're interested, you definitely want to think about that. And the other cool thing that I'll link in the show notes is that Marnie has been writing our Ask a Coach series. So I'll put that in the show notes too, so you guys can get to know Marnie a little bit more. But Marnie, where are we going to start with the 2024 workplace predictions?
Yeah, well, first, thank you for having me, Lauren. There's so much to dig into, and I wanted to start with a really exciting one that I think we've all waited a really long time to see, which is salary transparency. And the official prediction is that salary transparency will continue to be an advantage for both employers and employees. There are a lot of interesting stats on this in Robert Half's 2024 Market Outlook report, but the one that I thought was the most exciting and that would lead into how this impacts job searchers in particular is that 42% of workers now expect to see a salary range in a job posting, and 57% would take themselves out of consideration if the employer doesn't provide it upon request. I thought that was incredible considering that these pay transparency laws only started going into effect at the very beginning of this year. So it's all very new. Obviously, this is exciting if you're on the job hunt, but it's still relevant to you even if you're staying in your current role and just looking to make a little bit more money. So I'll dive into some tangible tips for both scenarios. We'll start with if you're on the job hunt. So obviously having the pay band up front is really helpful because it can eliminate any anxiety or uncertainty around the role. You don't have to worry about going too far down the line, putting all this effort in, and then realizing that the pay is just nowhere near where you want it. So you can decide right up front before you apply if a job is a good fit for you. Having that pay band will also help you, though, when it gets to the offer stage and when you're actually negotiating the exact pay that you're going to have. So I want to share two questions that you can ask when you're working through an offer negotiation if you already have the pay band up front. Lauren, the first is one that I know is one of your favorites, and it's I saw the pay band of, let's say, $70,000 to $100,000 listed online. Can you share the difference between a $70,000 employee and a $100,000 employee? So what this does is it puts the pressure on your potential employer to really justify the number that they're offering you, so you can get a sense of why you are being given the exact salary that you are. If you feel that you should be towards the higher side of the pay band, just based on your market research, what you're looking to make, or the experience that you bring in, you can always see if maybe the role that you're applying for has a senior title or there's a level up that you could explore with a higher pay band. I think something that a lot of folks don't know is companies tend to want to keep people in the low to mid range when they're bringing you on into a role because they want you to have room to grow from a compensation perspective. So it can be hard to get to the very high end within that offer negotiation. The second question I would ask is around compensation towards commission and bonuses, if that is relevant to your role. So how I like to phrase it is the pay band inclusive of commission and bonuses throughout the year? If so, how are commission structures determined? And what is the average commission achieved for someone in this role? Odds are that a pay band provided is going to include both the commission and the bonuses. But the really important piece of this question is how the commission is structured and how achievable it is, because you want to know how consistently you can expect that additional income. One thing to keep in mind when you're looking at this on-target earnings number within the pay band is even though it may include commission, normally commission is taxed at a higher rate. So when you think about your lifestyle and what you're looking to make in your next role, you want to keep in mind that the commission that you get paid is not going to be reflected in the same way in your paycheck that your base salary would be. So we'll move into if you're looking for a raise in your current role, pay transparency can help you build your case and will make you feel confident in the number that you're putting forward because you will know that the number that you're asking for is within the pay range for your role. So outside of asking your network, which we always recommend doing, we can now use pay bands from your company's job listings. So if you go online and your company has job postings shared, then you are able to obviously see the pay band for your role. If maybe your company doesn't have job listings shared or they're not needing to put the pay band in just based on the pay transparency laws in your state, you can always go to HR and ask for the pay band within your role. you're totally justified in doing that. And that just gives you a better idea of where you might fall. If you're more senior in your role, then you should definitely be towards the higher end of the pay band, which can help you in those negotiations. And ultimately, if you're not sure where you should be in the pay band, you can use that same question that we talked about for job searchers, which, as a refresher, is what is the difference between a $70,000 employee and a $100,000 employee? So your manager or your HR team can help you determine where you should fall within that range. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to money negotiation. So if you want more raise tips, you can check out the pod episode we did earlier this fall called 6 Do's and Don'ts of a Successful Salary Negotiation. But in the interest of time, we'll move on to the next prediction.
Yes, and one thing I just want to add is we started putting the salary bands in our weekly jobs newsletter. And I actually find that when a company doesn't put the salary band in the job description, it gets less clicks. So like, I don't have a ton of data and research to back this up other than to say like, people want to know everything laid out right away. So this research is backing up also what we're seeing at Career Contessa and just trying to make it easier for people to comb through those opportunities. Okay. Number 2 workplace prediction for 2024 is the continued rise of AI. And I know that this next trend, which actually came out of Forbes, is probably the most obvious one on the list of all. It's obvious for important reasons. We are moving into the future and AI is going to be part of that. So the key takeaway here is that while AI is projected to keep evolving and helping us become more efficient, the real power will come from being able to spot the limitations of AI and knowing where you still need to apply that human creativity, compassion, and innovation. So I think that's, if anything, AI is just making it more obvious that like, where is the part that humans need to be involved in. Using AI and ChatGPT, which is an AI tool, one that I have talked about a lot on the show, in your job search will continue. And this isn't a bad thing. I don't think this is a bad thing at all. Again, I've talked about this on the podcast, how to use ChatGPT to help tailor your resume. We have some blog posts on how you can use it to help you prepare for a job interview, draft a resignation letter, etc. It's truly a fantastic tool that can save you so much time. I also love AI tools like JobScan, Resume Worded, even Teal. These tools will help use AI to scan your resume for keywords and tell you how competitive you are for an ATS. They help you just be more competitive with the documents you're putting forward, such as your resume, your cover letter, etc. So I love AI, but I will also be the first to encourage you to use this as a complement and not a replacement for important things in your career. At the end of the day, it's still humans making decisions about other humans. So don't dehumanize your brand. The old way of finding a job was creating a great resume and sending it out and waiting to hear back. But the new way is quality over quantity. It's tailoring your resume. You need to use ChatGPT to help you, do it. It's applying to jobs early. It's, which is, again, you can use online tools to help create job alerts. It's contacting 3 people for every job application, right? Because of that networking piece, which AI cannot replace the networking piece. It's identifying your top 10 companies. What is it that makes these companies culture fit, culture add for you, a value fit? Identify decision makers in those top 10 companies and try to build relationships with them. It's creating a plan to reach decision makers. It's building and nurturing relationships with them. It's be the most prepared candidate before the interview. That's another great place to use AI to help you really prep beyond maybe what you're able to think about. So the whole idea here is to play offense, not defense. AI is just a tactic in your overall strategy. It's not the replacement for your strategy. So that is number 2 for the workplace predictions. And Marnie, I'll let you share number 3.
Yeah, I love that you say don't dehumanize your brand. I think that's such a good way to put it. Number 3 is from LinkedIn. We obviously had to include one from LinkedIn, and their 2024 trends report predicts that upskilling and reskilling will remain essential for professionals to stay competitive and advance their careers, especially with ongoing automation and new roles emerging across various sectors. So these terms, upskilling and reskilling, I know have come up quite a bit this year already. We have a recent article on Career Contessa around both of these. So I wanted to take a moment to quickly define them because I know it can be hard to differentiate between the two. So upskilling refers to the process of acquiring new skills that complement or enhance an individual's existing expertise and qualifications, so adding to a foundation that you've already built, whereas reskilling involves learning entirely new skills that enable individuals to switch to different roles or industries. And I also want to speak to the connotation behind these terms and what I think is really at the heart of needing to continuously chase growth in education. When I was doing research for this episode, I noticed a common theme of automation and changing job roles being framed as a threat or a negative thing that we should be concerned about, in line with concerns around AI as well. But I've seen both upskilling and reskilling to be real catalysts for career fulfillment with my coaching clients in particular. I think it's really exciting when someone gets a job and they say it's their dream job, but they didn't even know it existed before they found the role. That's happened many times. And ultimately, this is all because we have the ability to continue to grow and evolve within the working infrastructure that we've built as a society. So I think constant growth and evolution should be really exciting and framed as a positive thing. And with that in mind, Lauren, I'll let you dive deeper into the specifics because I know you have some good tips for these.
Well, this just makes me immediately think about, we did an episode on the value of being an invaluable employee. And basically we went down the list and it was, what's the difference between an indispensable employee and an invaluable employee? And when you have the ability to reskill and upskill, you become this invaluable employee. So one thing that I think a lot of us were taught is, oh, you want to be indispensable. But here's what the difference between these two things looks like, and why at the end of these two lists, you'll probably say, yes, I want to be the invaluable employee. So indispensable employees, they do their jobs and they do it well. We're not taking that away from them, but they wait for leadership to take direction. They escalate issues to other people. They stick to what they know in times of change. They can add burden to work. They have a we can't lose you mentality. Working hard provides them job security. Organizations can't function without you in the role, so it's harder to advance, because if you're not able to grow and move into something else, then we can't have you leave there, right? You're indispensable to that specific role, and then you're primed for overwork. Versus when you're invaluable and you take on this growth mindset, you do the job that's needed, right? You're able to step in and out of leadership when it's needed, in and out of roles. You find better ways to fix issues, even if that means learning something new. You ask and adjust. You ask and adjust to changes. You make work easier. You have a we don't want to lose you mentality, versus before it was a we can't lose you, right? So this is the invaluable mentality. Making an impact provides you job security, not working hard. It's easier to move around within the organization, and you're primed for valuable work. So I thought this list fit in really well with this, because I think it's really important that when you are thinking about upskilling and reskilling, that you realize that it is what is also going to make you the invaluable person in the workplace. You get to work on the more impactful projects, because we know that we can move you around the organization, and no matter where you go, you create value. So that is also, I think, just a really positive side effect of embracing this. And if this is something you guys are also really interested about, I just want to plug one more time, Career Camp is an awesome program to help people think about where do they need to upskill and reskill, what can they do to become more invaluable employees in the workplace so that it can work on more impactful presentations. So if Career Camp is something that you guys are considering, obviously I put all the stuff in the show notes, but just want to plug that one more time because there's only going to be 50 spots available. Okay, so that takes us into number 4, which is, I feel like we need a drum, like dun, dun, dun. High percentage of companies plan a return to office, but most are focused on a hybrid schedule. And this is probably not new to you guys. You probably go on LinkedIn or talk to your friends, and you're hearing these stories of employers saying you have to come back to the office, or if, like what happens then. So this one really pained me to put it on the list, because I know that fully remote schedule is very near and dear to my heart, but also to many of the people in my own network. And I saw a pretty surprising stat about return to office that I just really couldn't escape in this research. So according to CNBC, 90% of companies say they'll return to the office by 2024. The statistic itself is from Resume Builder survey that went out to 1,000 company leaders. So you could argue that's not a big sample size, but the stat is being reported out on a lot of major work publications. And one of my concerns always is that companies like to follow each other. So a couple of key takeaways: while there may be continued push to get employees in the office, it won't necessarily be full-time. A lot of experts are projecting that the 5-day commute really is dead, and that when it comes to employee morale, it's much easier to push through a hybrid setup than a fully in-office setup. Second would be a small percentage of companies, only about 2% in the study, said they never plan to require employees to go back in person. Number three is the feedback that the experts have been giving for why this push to return to office continues to be so strong is super interesting. The sentiment is essentially that, well, we never intended for the world to change this dramatically and the offices to just go away. So there's also a popular argument that people are less connected to their company and their peers without the office, which is not great news for employee engagement and retention. Here's what I will say though. I'm super passionate about maintaining flexible work schedules, especially when it comes to working parents or anybody who it's not just working parents, but really anybody who maybe had a disadvantage in the actual workplace. So that would be women of color, BIPOC, disabilities, working parents, everything. And I have friends who, and this gives me hope, who are literally in charge of a friend who is the head of Team Anywhere. There are companies who are creating complete remote roles, head of remote here, head of remote there, to try to study this and understand how can we make our remote teams more productive, engaged, not lose the good things that we had in office. I'll link to it in the show notes, but Annie Dean from Atlassian, she's the head of Team Anywhere. She just wrote this great article in the Wall Street Journal. And some of the behaviors they found that actually make distributed teams better, which by the way, were already distributed teams, were better documentation, intentional use of meetings, more deep work blocks. So I'm hopeful that even though there is a push for return to office, that we will see more companies say, wait, this is not what our employees want. And maybe we should follow in the footsteps of these other companies who are doing actual real research to prove that remote work is not the person to blame for what's happening in the workplace right now for employers. So it gives me a lot of hope. And I will link to the article for anyone else who likes to nerd out on the future of work and especially remote distributed teams.
Perfect. And we're ending with a high note in terms of a custom prediction that we have here at Career Contessa based on the aggregate research we did for this episode, which is that career coaching will become more mainstream. So it won't just be for executives anymore. Every prediction that we found in our research ties back to a topic of coaching in some fashion. So we found obviously a lot of other predictions that didn't make the final cut, but for the predictions that we did highlight, we talked about salary transparency, which ties into pay negotiation, a big pillar within career coaching. We talked about generative AI and the importance of personal branding. We spoke to upskilling and reskilling, which ties back to just general career development. And finally, we spoke to return to office planning, or hopefully at least keeping some remote working options, and that ties into career fulfillment for a lot of folks. So all four of those pillars are really key to coaching. And we found some other research that backed up this trend that, like I said, we didn't get to include. So I do want to quickly speak to a few just to make sure that you get a full breadth of what everyone is talking about when it comes to 2024. From a job searching perspective, I found quite a few reports that projected quitting rates are actually going to continue to be high in 2024 compared to pre-COVID. So there's that ongoing theme of people wanting to move jobs, whether it's for a career transition or simply more money. And when people are leaving jobs, they obviously need support sometimes through that journey, especially in a competitive market. So we are predicting that folks will use career coaches, not just to find jobs, but also really be partners in the offer negotiation and really thinking through what makes sense for their future career paths. We've seen already an uptick in career coaching bookings, which I found super interesting on the Career Contessa platform. So month over month for all of 2023, we've increased bookings, and we're now at the most bookings we have in a single month. So that upward trajectory is already starting to happen this year, and we see it continuing into 2024. If you're not looking for a job, there are some trends that do reflect career fulfillment in general and just really thinking about how to make the most of your work life. One was from Glassdoor, and it talked about the pressure that middle managers face. I know anyone who has been a middle manager or is currently a middle manager can really empathize with this. It's been a tough few years for middle managers, especially during the second half of 2023 with layoffs and cost cutting. And being a middle manager is always going to have its difficulties, like enforcing policies you didn't necessarily have a hand in creating. But there are ways to put boundaries in place that can help turn the stress down a fraction. And working with a career coach can help to illuminate where there's opportunity for those new boundaries and also how to handle leading through ongoing uncertain times.
I love this one. I just feel like we should all graduate college or high school or whatever and be assigned our career coach for life. I just feel like we would be better off if we had someone helping us think through our career paths. And, careers are less linear than ever. The career jungle gym analogy, like all of this is so true. You point out earlier that people come to you and they find their dream job and it's a job they never even knew existed. Like, I think there is so much, there's so many parts about coaching in general that help with those reflective questions. And I'm really, really excited about just the future of career coaching and how people aren't going to feel like it's so, only for a certain type, usually the type that are at the very top. So as we wrap up, I want to remind y'all one more time that our 2024 Career Camp program is on sale until December 11th, 2023. We only have 50 spots. Career campers will get access to a personalized career assessment, one-on-one career coaching with a pre-matched coach. So based on what you're looking for, we will match you so that we'll make sure you have a coach who can help with your specific needs. You'll get unlimited access to all of our online courses and a physical copy of my book, Power Moves. The program officially runs February 1st through April 30th. So we're pre-selling it right now. If you enroll right now, not only do you get to reserve one of the very rare 50 spots that we have, but you also save over $300. So check out the show notes to get more information and enroll in that if that's something that you're thinking about. I think for a lot of people, the accountability and just the coaching in general is truly priceless and helping you kind of navigate your next steps. It's sort of that like designing your next career move. That's how we think of career camp. So Marnie, thank you so much for joining us today. Again, you guys, Marnie is a career coach on Career Contessa. You can book her for sessions. She's also part of Career Camp. I'll link to her Ask a Coach. So follow her, become obsessed with her the way we are. And these were some fantastic predictions for 2024. Hope some of them come true. Hope at least for one does not come true, but it's always interesting to think about work trends and they're always changing. So thank you again.
Yeah, thanks so much, Lauren.